Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Today's guest is a really great guest. She can be described by what she brings to a project: persistent focus on user needs and simplifying experiences to make them easy and enjoyable. She provides a combination of content strategy, user experience, design strategy, research-driven design, branding, and front-end development, and a commitment to learning and collaboration, a love of transforming processes and developing new ways for clients to speak to their audience that can be heard clearly and inspire action. Please join me in welcoming Meg Stiven. Welcome, Meg.
Thanks, Thomas. Really great to be here.
Awesome. You ready for 20 questions?
I am.
Great. Question one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Okay, so yeah, as you described, I'm a designer and primarily now a service designer or a strategic and organizational designer. I work for the British Columbia provincial government in BC Data Service. And I've been with the BC government for 7 years. And over that time, I've had various roles, but they've all been focused on using human-centered design to make services easier to use for both citizens and staff. I've had the opportunity to design digital services ranging from healthcare applications to cannabis licensing for businesses, childcare and autism services for families, apps to access self-serve agriculture land use information, freedom of information request process, the legal name change process, and COVID vaccination registration and booking. So really wide range of different things that I've been able to get my hands into working for government. And that's one of the things I really love about it. It spans all of the services that people in BC need, and so many great chances to get out and talk to people about their needs and how government can meet them. In my current role as Director of Client Engagement and Service Delivery, I support 7 different Agile teams in our branch with their design practice and improving how we deliver services to clients. I get to mentor and coach our designers and product owners and develop strategy for how we grow and improve our design practice, as well as how we apply Agile principles. I've been in this role for about 7 months now, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Awesome. Just a note for our audience, Meg and I know each other from our art school days when I don't think there was a thing called service design yet, was there?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, when I first took my first service design role, I didn't even really know what it meant at the time. So it is a newer practice, but there's been lots of adoption, well, in all different industries, but especially it's growing in government.
Great. Okay. Number 2, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I think for this one, my key piece of knowledge is that it is fun to work in the space of the unknown and to not have answers to questions. So for this, I thought back to there was a key moment, one of those moments that kind of stands out in, I guess, in my career past. I was working at UBC at the time, and I had the opportunity to work with a coach, like a career coach. We all had that service as staff at UBC, which was awesome. And I had just come back from leave and come back to find my team full of a bunch of new people that I didn't know. And the practice had really shifted. I was previously doing visual design, lots of posters and handbooks, and we had taken on a lot more digital work and hired new UX designers. So it was a whole new landscape. So I was talking with the coach about this and kind of where I wanted to go. And she said, she's kind of spoke back to me what she was hearing and said, it sounds like I'm comfortable just on the edge of what is known, or working in that space, just on the edge of what is known, and that not everybody is. And so she suggested that as kind of an advantage that I could have, even though I was in this new space, returning to this team that I felt like I didn't really know a lot of people or know a lot of what I could offer. So that really helped me, I think, to know what I had to offer in that new space of UX design and prototyping and agile that I was moving into at that moment. And this comfort with the unknown has really driven how natural and easy the design researcher role has always felt to me. Really love the process of talking to people, guiding unscripted conversations, following threads, and kind of acting in the moment to peel back the layers of a situation or a context. And then the analysis work that comes along with research, taking a huge amount of complex information and looking for patterns and seeing what's important emerge. I think I know that I'm not overwhelmed by complexity or ambiguity, and that's really important in this kind of work. The colleagues that I have that have that same, key piece of knowledge about that being a fun space to work in are people that I really enjoy working with as well.
Nice. Yesterday evening I was chatting with a previous guest, Keith Tam, and we were talking about, the art school days, and he was saying how, Meg, you were on his hiring committee for his assistant professor role at that time. And I imagine that must have been something new for you too, like jumping into the unknown a little bit.
Yeah, that was, I remember that. I was really, felt really lucky to get to be on a hiring committee there and get that experience. And it's definitely something I do a ton in my role now, hiring people. So sort of adding up all that experience over the years, it started out with that one for Keith. That's a cool memory.
Awesome. Number three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Okay, so originally I got into design because I loved art, but I wanted the things I made to be a conversation with an audience in a more direct way, where my work needed to persuade people to take an action. And I shifted away from graphic design to UX and user experience design because I could observe that conversation or action in a more direct way. I got to watch people use the products I designed and improve them. So that was a really key piece of kind of why I moved away from graphic design and into UX and then service design. I started working in government really just because I moved to Victoria from Vancouver 7 years ago and thought I might as well try working for government. So many people in Victoria do. And I happened to have a friend at the time who was hiring a designer into his area of government. It turned out to be way more fun than I expected. I love complexity and problem solving, and government is full of complex problems. And so it's full of opportunities for improvement and opportunities to really meet important needs that people have in their daily lives. I've always worked in the public sector, and I think it's been really great to get to apply design to those problems that people have in their lives and know that you're really contributing to an important service. When I did shift into service design shortly after I joined government, it felt really natural, even though, as I mentioned, I didn't know what service design was at the time. And for those who maybe don't know, it's looking at the whole end-to-end journey that someone has in order to meet a goal. So bigger than just user experience design, it also looks at offline services and interactions, and it looks at the front and back end of a service. So the people accessing the service, but also the staff who are delivering the service and all of the organizational policies and processes that support that. So when I first started doing service design in government, I was working on a couple of apps that were used by public or by government staff. But the staff in our area had to receive data from those apps and process it. And I knew I really wanted the process to work for both sides. So I naturally just kind of started observing staff processes behind the scenes and looking at ways to make it easier. And what I've always really loved about service design is that it gives me that chance to do what I love, which is listen to people, understand what's underneath their behavior, and then use that to spark design ideas. And it's all about making things simpler. So plain language, simple UIs and processes, and really understanding what people's end goal is and then making it easier for them to reach that. I find that kind of work really satisfying.
That's awesome. Recently I was in the opposite seat. I was a guest on a podcast, and I spoke for a length about, I guess, about industry. And at the end of what I said, the interviewer said, "Oh, it sounds like there should be designers in government." I was like, "Yeah, there are." Okay, cool. So number four, what does your future look like?
Yeah, so I tend to be someone who's really sort of goes, I guess, deep into the roles that I'm in and stays for quite a while in one job. I worked at UBC for 10 years and now I've been with government for 7, and obviously through lots of different roles and changing context during that time. But I really like to dig in and learn in one space for a while. I think I see myself, being in gov for quite a while in the future. There's endless opportunities across the BC government, and it's really easy for staff to move around to different areas, different ministries and program areas. So I think that as I carry on here, there'll always be a new area I can move into. There's lots of areas in government going through transformation to agile and human-centered design practices. So there'll, I'm sure, be other opportunities to go and kind of teach those practices and build them in other areas. And yeah, I really enjoy just the building relationships and helping to form teams and helping teams navigate through change and seeing that progress when I stick around for a while. Other than that, I think, I have 2 small kids. Well, they're not that small anymore. They're 9 and 12. So really my future looks like continuing to focus on supporting them and my family, at least until they're ready to move on to their own things after school. I am thinking, as they get older, when I get asked questions about the future, I do start to think ahead more to what my life might be like when I have more of my own free time. So definitely looking forward to spending more time on my drawing practice in the future. And I recently started running some races over the last year, and I'm really excited about where that might lead in the future as well, doing more running. And I think that's about it. I tend to more be focused on now and know that things are going to unfold in an exciting way as things go on.
Nice. I was glad to hear you bring up human-centered design. Our last guest, BC Williams Mao, Bruce Mao's partner, talked about their big focus on more than human design, post-human design. And we also had Dr. Ron Wakari on in a popular episode, who recently has a book out through MIT Press about more than human worlds as well. I think all of that kind of space is really gaining a lot of traction right now.
That's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Number five is a fun one. So let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Okay, so I live here in Victoria on the unceded and traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. And so thinking about place, I grew up in BC here and um, lived away for a while in other places in Canada, but then came back. I've always really, really loved BC and felt very connected to the ocean and the forest and the mountains here. In my work now, it's definitely really, I think about place a lot. One, because I am here as a settler on Lekwungen lands and think about what that relationship means, especially to my work and my responsibility to work toward reconciliation. And just knowing that as a settler, I have the privilege of really, living somewhere where my worldviews are reflected everywhere in what I do. So I strive to think about how I can bring other worldviews into my work and make space for other ways of doing things. The other way it comes into my work is as we design, working for a provincial government rather than maybe municipal or something smaller, when we're serving the whole province, we have to think about what people's lives are like in all of the places around the province and what their needs are for services. And in a role I had earlier when I was doing service design, I got to go on research trips all around the province to talk to people. We went up to Prince Rupert and talked to families about their needs for autism programs and services. Went into the interior as well. We heard about what people on Haida Gwaii needed from emergency alerting services. So going out and really just actually being, uh, you know, staying in different places around the province for a few days or a week and meeting with families and individuals and having conversations about what their lives were like, what the challenges were, really opened my eyes up to just different ways of living around the province, different contexts people are in, and how that suggests different design solutions or what you need to do to design for people in all those different contexts. So I don't get to travel as much for my work anymore, and we do most of our research work actually just with online video interviews. So we're no longer traveling as much, and there's advantages to that because we can actually reach more of the province and talk to a wider variety of people. But we aren't getting to observe right in context in people's homes or workplaces as I used to before. But I do take all that learning and kind of still keep that in mind as I'm working on government services, knowing that not everybody's in Victoria and there's lots of different needs that people have.
I'm glad to hear you bring up the interviews. I just finished a master's, and of course, there's the focus on the qualitative interviews and learning people's stories in a way. Yeah, I think that's a fun area to explore, especially when you're at the beginning stages of it. Number six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
I think when I first got out of school, I was really thinking a lot about what kind of work I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And it's good to be intentional, but I think I would tell my former self to not really worry about trying to define that so much and just to follow what I'm interested in. And if I work hard and I'm respectful, that I'll always have opportunities. I've certainly found that to be the case as my career has evolved. Just following my interest and working really hard and building good relationships with the people I work with has led to lots of chances to try out exciting things and move on.
Seven, what's a day in your life like?
Well, it's pretty busy given that I have my two kids to kind of get around and make their day work as well. So I do love my mornings that are a little bit quiet before they get up. And I have a pretty standard routine for my mornings. I really like routine. So I get up and just do 10 minutes of meditation, usually a bit of yoga, always cook something good for breakfast. I love to cook. And then I go and get my younger daughter off to school, and then I start work. And my workday might include working on hiring new staff, working on strategy with my direct reports, meeting one-on-one with some of our designers to coach them on process or approach, attending sprint reviews to give feedback to our different teams' work, reviewing new client agreements, working with our product owners to set and monitor their objectives and key results, sometimes facilitating a workshop or a training session, or meeting with other teams in government about funding or HR planning, meeting with our leadership team to discuss approach to emerging challenges and new business. So lots of varied things throughout the workday, but mostly all talking with other people. Sometimes if I'm working from home, I'll go for a short run or walk over lunch and usually cook some more food. And then I pick my younger daughter up from school and finish my day at home. That's something I started doing during COVID times when we had a lot more flexibility to be at home a lot. And I still really appreciate that flexibility. So popping out, going to the school, coming back and doing a couple more hours of work. And then evenings, having dinner with my kids, helping them with homework. And then maybe I have some time to myself for reading or drawing or listening to a podcast. Time with my friends and my partner is really important too. So some days going out to dinner with others or going for a hike or something like that with a friend.
Super. Number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Yeah, always love learning, and lucky that in government we have lots of opportunities both for courses that we can, funding for courses we can take, as well as opportunities to learn from the community and government. So I'm part of a lot of different community of practices and listen to podcasts that other design leaders in government are doing to learn that way. I've taken a couple courses this past year through IDOU, their online school. I just finished one on activating strategy that was really, really interesting. And I love their courses because they're very hands-on and you bring a problem from your work that you work through in the course. And you get to learn with people from around the world too. So definitely love to spend some focused time on learning like that. I just got a masterclass subscription and I've been listening to a Neil Gaiman course on the art of storytelling, which I'm finding really interesting. And I think mostly I just learn a ton from my colleagues. So having worked in government for 7 years, I've met a lot of people doing really awesome things in the digital government space. So I stay in touch with all of them, get together for monthly lunches or coffees. And that's one way that I stay up to date with new approaches, thinking, what are the people I admire working on? What are they trying out and learning? And I always get new ideas that way. I'm also learning a lot about data from my colleagues now in my new role, and have been learning also about Indigenous data governance, and where our area is working on rolling out some things related to the Anti-Racism Data Act as well. We've been doing some anti-racism training, so also developing in that space.
I'm glad to hear you bring up podcasting. Recently we had Debbie Millman on the show. She would have been my first introduction to the podcast world. Her long-running design podcast, Design Matters, is such a pillar in the design world, I think, and is a really special thing for a lot of people. Number 9, what tools do you use? Are you digital and analog?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty squarely right in the middle of using both digital and analog. So I use iPad and Procreate and Apple Pencil for my drawing and illustration work, which I really love, but I do use my physical sketchbook and pen probably just as often. And for work, my tools are really simple. Most of my work is done in MS Teams, just video calls, and then in Mural. I do really like to have good note-taking tools and visual note-taking tools. Being able to visualize my thoughts is really important for me and my thinking and organizing my thoughts. I wouldn't consider myself a digital nomad. I'm pretty tied to where I live here in Victoria with my kids' lives here. But as a BC public servant, I am unable to work anywhere in BC. And I definitely enjoy the ability to work from home or from the office as needed. There's lots of great drop-in workspaces in different government buildings around the city that I can drop into as well. So So yeah, pretty mobile with just my laptop and some simple tools day to day.
Nice. Okay, halfway here, number 10. How do you deal with work-life balance?
Yeah, this is a good one. I would say mostly exercise. So getting out throughout the day to get walks or runs in, that's something I know just really keeps me sane. And when I don't have it, I really notice it. So that's the sort of what I've learned is the key piece I really need to feel balanced. Also over the last couple of years, trying out meditation has made a huge difference, and it's helped me kind of recognize when I'm feeling anxious or overextended. If work is taking over my brain space too much, that's something I can lean on. I think I learned a lot about some of these tools and work-life balance over the past couple of years of COVID times. The team I was working on at the time was really supporting government's response to COVID and the whole vaccination service and program. And so we were really deep into it. And that became challenging when we were all dealing with the impacts of COVID in our daily lives, but also living it every moment at work in a really intense time. And I was in a new role leading a team, and we were hiring a ton of people to take on the extra work supporting vaccination program as well. So it was just a really intense time, and it was kind of the first time that work went from being, I think I always naturally had a pretty good work life balance because I just loved my work and found it really energizing. But during that time, I had to work a little harder to find those other things in my life to help bring that balance back when it was feeling like too much. Um, I would say also that like I've been lucky, working um, in the public service. There's a lot of flexibility that our employer has, and we have that. Um, I guess a commitment to making sure that we're taking care of our lives and our families and ourselves as people as well as employees. So that's something I benefit from a ton. Just having that um, permission, I guess, to prioritize the things in your life that you need to be happy and healthy. And I definitely encourage that with all my staff as well and make sure people know that they can take the time they need for their health and mental health.
Great, glad to hear about meditation. I've recently been trying it for 10 minutes in the morning, and wow, it really changes things. Number 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I think either illustration, which is definitely my sort of second big love as far as art and design, or cooking. Really love to cook, and I feel proud of my skills in that area.
What would you not like to do career-wise?
This was a tough one for me because I can find something interesting about most things. I think it would maybe be something where I didn't get to interact with people. So yeah, again, like, I loved the user research sure role, getting to be out talking to people about their lives. And I think any job where I was kind of stuck away by myself and didn't get to talk to people, I think what comes to mind is like a scientist working in a basement laboratory or something. I would probably hate that.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
My favorite quote is one from the Dalai Lama. It's be kind whenever possible. It is always possible.
Hmm.
And I like that because I remember when I first heard it, I was reading it and I thought, okay, yeah, be kind whenever possible. That's good. Like I can do that. But then you read the second part and it's like, oh, it's always possible. Okay, there's no way out. You just have to be kind. And it really is always possible.
You have a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Again, nothing really came to mind for this, but my partner reminded me that I do hate to be told to calm down. So I'd say calm down is my answer here. Probably a common one for most women and a lot of people. No one likes to be told that.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what word would you choose?
I would choose the word enthusiast. I think I get really excited about a lot of things. There's always a ton of things kind of spinning around in my mind, and I want to go after every experience. So yeah, I've been trying to use the word excited less because I tend to overuse that in lots of situations. So trying to think about other ways I can describe that are more specific, but enthusiast is definitely me.
16, what keeps you up at night?
So I do sometimes get, kept up at night thinking about challenges at work. It usually would be either thinking about how to approach a particular project or strategy or um, stakeholder relationship, or it is sometimes things about staffing. So thinking about how to fill vacant positions when we have a lot of them, or how to pair people up with the right opportunities, and hoping that staff are feeling valued and supported and enjoying their jobs. Those are some of the, I guess it's the people stuff more that might keep me awake at night.
Great. Final stretch number 17. What's a dream you're chasing?
Yeah, so I mentioned illustration, and I have a graphic novel that I'm working on, and I'm definitely dreaming of finishing it. Although I'm still a long way to go, so mostly just dreaming of getting some more solid time working on it, and dreaming of being able to share the story with people when I'm done. It's about grief and kind of the things in life that we aren't taught how to do. It's from a collection of drawings I did while my marriage was ending, which was 5 years ago. So a bunch of sketchbook drawings from the 2 years kind of following that I've now put together into a narrative. And I'm working on storyboarding and filling in some of the gaps in the story, as well as redrawing the original images digitally. Um, it's a, yeah, I think grief is something that often when you're going through it, you may not have gone through it before. You really don't have a lot of, you never really taught, I guess, how to deal with that. And so I'm looking forward to sharing the story, just to kind of maybe give other people who are going through it that recognition of the feelings they might be feeling. And it's also a humorous story though, because there are lots of kind of humorous moments even when you're going through a really hard time. So yeah, some ups and downs in the story.
Grade 18. What inspires you?
People's stories inspire me, as we've already talked about, really watching people try to do something and struggle, or talking about their challenges and motivations. That seems to be the thing that inspires me the most to find design solutions.
Yeah, I love when people answer that question with people. I remember when I first heard that, it was from another popular guest, Michael Peter, who had just finished his master's at Royal College of Art London and had a lot of enthusiasm for all of his answers. And yeah, when we came to 18, he said, "People, Thomas, people inspire me." I'll never forget the way that he said that. It was very powerful. Number 19, any advice you'd like to share?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I have anything beyond what I already shared. I was just thinking, I mean, I often like I talk with a lot of younger designers who are looking to get into service design or UX, and um, I always just encourage, in terms of advice, I just encourage people to keep, doing things they're interested in and going after sort of complementary skill sets, talking to people, just getting experiences and trying um, to build up, yeah, a really wide variety of skills. Service design is a really like holistic practice, and there's so many different backgrounds that you can bring to it. So I think just really recognizing the experiences you do have, and how you can apply those in a new area um, is the advice that I generally give.
Great. And 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you? How do we stay connected?
I think LinkedIn is probably the best way. I stopped using other social media about a year ago to free up more time to do other things and progress with my drawing and sewing and other projects. I haven't really found I'm spending more time on those other things, but it's definitely freed up my headspace and left me feeling more content. But I'm always happy to have folks reach out on LinkedIn if they're interested in chatting about anything related to my work.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for being on. I was really inspired actually by the way that you talk about your everyday work. When some people would say, "Oh, my day is filled with meetings," you kind of had a kind of detailed accounts of the things that you do, and what the word meetings might mean, which is nice and actually inspiring in that it all sounded like it makes you really happy, which is great. So yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. It was really nice to chat with you.
Okay, take care.
You too.